What's up, Space Pirates? I am your captain, the Dread Pirate Dr. Disaster, and today we have to discuss a rumor that is bubbling up amidst all the other rumors concerning what is going on in the background over at Disney Lucasfilm. For years, folks in this space have speculated on a Lucasfilm Civil War. This rumor essentially claims that now, after all this time, we finally know who won it.
Well, we're waiting.
At long last, it sounds as though Jon Favreau is being declared the loser of whatever conflict may have taken place at Lucasfilm. The speculation is that Jon is no longer working much on Star Wars, which explains the sudden lack of quality in the Mandoverse, starting with the Book of Boba Fett. As much as I don't like the thought of Kathleen Kennedy winning anything other than a one-way ticket to the unemployment line, it seems safe to say at this point that Jon Favreau is not the man in charge right now, and that in fact, he has been sidelined extensively after Mandalorian Season 2.
You're a moron!
Now, of course, you'd have to be a moron to move on from Jon Favreau after he delivered the goods in Mandalorian Seasons 1 and 2, but that's where we are right now. Keep in mind, this is not necessarily a commentary on whether or not Kathleen Kennedy will keep her job at Lucasfilm moving forward, especially in the wake of the massive failure of Indiana Jones 5. But I will comment on all that later. But first, in this video, we will discuss this Favreau rumor, and then we will look at what we can expect concerning Kathleen Kennedy, especially in light of the news that Bob Iger has been extended as the CEO of Disney through 2026. So, pour one out for common sense, and make sure to wear a helmet, because for some people, these bits of news and rumors will make it seem like the sky is falling. But for me, I chuckle. It's funny watching Disney burn its own house down and pretend like all is well.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
Alright, this headline comes courtesy of Bounding Into Comics. Rumor: the Mandalorian creator Jon Favreau, the casualty of Lucasfilm Civil War, not really working on Star Wars anymore. The article says, a new rumor claims that the Mandalorian executive producer and creator Jon Favreau was the casualty of a rumored Lucasfilm Civil War, and that he is no longer working on Star Wars anymore. This new rumor comes from Tom Connors at Midnight's Edge during the channel's recent Midnight's Edge in the Morning number 429 stream. Connors' revelation came after answering a super chat from E. Hellstrom, who asserted Dave Filoni is a corporate creative and doesn't have what it takes to save Star Wars. Therefore, his creation, Ahsoka, doesn't have what it takes either. I doubt Favreau can save Star Wars. Connors replied, well, he's not there anymore, pretty much. He's gone. What chance he had is over. And I know a lot of people have poked fun at the Civil War, but guess what? He was the casualty. Let's be real. Fellow panelist Culture Casino then observed the change in direction was quite obvious. Mandalorian went sideways. Boba Fett went sideways. All the slate of Mandoverse shows went sideways. You can see what was happening. And again, Civil War, no Civil War, whatever you want to call it, you can see where everything pivoted. Favreau's no longer there, which means the last best chance for Disney to salvage Lucasfilm is gone. Now, I happen to agree with this. Anyone with eyes can see that something happened after Season 2 of The Mandalorian. It seems as if the same people were no longer writing for the Mandoverse. It seems like some other influence was controlling the direction of it. We went from a show that had the fan base reuniting to a series of shows that had us scratching our heads and holding our mouths open in shock and disgust. The change in quality was so sheer that many of us could hardly believe it. For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, just look at the audience score for Rotten Tomatoes. On Season 1 of The Mandalorian, they were sitting at 92%, and then a sterling 91% for Season 2. But then something happened. The Mandoverse went off a cliff in terms of quality. A large chunk of the audience didn't like it. The Book of Boba is sitting at a 54% audience score, and currently, The Mandalorian Season 3 is now at 50%. And if you look at this Google Trends chart, you can see that the search term The Mandalorian was quite high on Google a few years ago, peaking steeply with the first 2 seasons' release. But then, both The Book of Boba Fett in blue and then Season 3 of The Mandalorian just kind of faded away. Audiences tuned out. But continuing on, the article says, Connors then elaborated on how Favreau became sidelined. The short version is, Favreau was able to operate when Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy was being distracted by Blood and Bone. For those who don't know, a few years ago it was announced that Lucasfilm was going to be adapting the novel Children of Blood and Bone to the big screen. Though a while back it was announced that instead, Paramount bought the rights from Disney and Lucasfilm is no longer in charge of that. Anyhow, the moment Chapek made the worst decision he ever made in office, and I mean that ever more so than some of the other stupid shit he's done, he told Kathy, get the F out of there and get back over here and worry about Lucasfilm, their normal stuff like Willow and Indiana Jones and Star Wars. And that was the moment that the Civil War ended, because it came with the final blow with the firing of Gina Carano. From that moment on, everything unraveled. Rumors about a civil war within Lucasfilm go as far back as January 2021, when Scooper WDW Pro detailed at Pirates and Princesses the ongoing battle over Lucasfilm's direction continues, with Kathleen Kennedy and Jon Favreau factions fighting over the studio. It's fairly well known at this point that the beef between Kennedy and Iger is real, given that Iger essentially ignored her in his memoirs. He continued, it's also hard to lose sight of how many projects Kennedy has seen fail at Lucasfilm. Star Wars Resistance, Star Wars Forces of Destiny, Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures, Solo, and the sequel trilogy falling in revenues with each release, while Favreau seemingly struck it out of the park with The Mandalorian, a series for Disney Plus that even Iger was giving creative suggestions for and taking notes on each episode. Later, he declared that Kennedy was the winner of this alleged civil war. With all that said, Kennedy has essentially gotten her way time after time, outplaying Iger even if she has been hammered by segments of the fans, mostly by hiring and developing strong loyalty within her brand. Yes, folks, Kathleen Kennedy has many of her acolytes working for her in Lucasfilm. You can see this fact manifest itself on the screen anytime there's a Star Wars project that isn't helmed by Jon Favreau. Woke, corporate, grievance, identity politics take the center stage in place of story every time. That's what happened with the sequel trilogy. That's what happened with Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's what happened with Star Wars Resistance. And that's what we sensed in the Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian Season 3. The difference was so stark between those two shows and the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian that it was jarring. The characters in the universe were the same, but it no longer felt like Star Wars. The Mandoverse took on all the charm of an infomercial. It became corporate and clunky, and we have little hope that anything will be improved with the next Mandoverse show, Ahsoka. Let's look at the trailer for that show, which just dropped yesterday, and you tell me, does this feel like Star Wars anymore? Do you care anymore? Or does it just look like a fancy corporate toy catalog that you just can't get excited over?
War is inevitable. One must destroy in order to create. We are no Jedi.
I started hearing whispers of Thrawn's return as heir to the Empire.
What happens when we find Thrawn?
Power, such as you've never dreamed.
I've spent most of my life fighting a war. That's why I'm trying to convince you to help me prevent another one. You and I both know who could help you with this.
She's still just as stubborn as ever.
I bet your master found you difficult at times.
Anakin never got to finish my training. I walked away from him, just like I walked away from Sabine.
You never made things easy for me, Master.
As a Jedi, sometimes you have to make the decision no one else can. But I'm counting on you to see this through.
Nice haircut. Sometimes we have to do what's right, regardless of our personal feelings.
Buckle up.
If we don't stop Thrawn, everything will be in vain. You have no power.
Anakin spoke highly of you.
I'm not here to discuss my past.
We have a lot of work to do.
Once a rebel, always a rebel.
OMG. We just have to stop it right there. That line bothers the hell out of me. It just doesn't land. The rebellion is over. It is way too meta to work within the confines of the story, and I'm just not having it. But the point I wanted to make with this trailer is this. There was a time when seeing Thrawn on the big screen would have given me goosebumps. It would have brought a smile to my face. Now, nothing. I don't care. I am apathetic to everything Star Wars has done these days because there is no mystery as to what will happen in a Star Wars project. I know what the plot is before it ever comes out because it is always the same. It is always the most disappointing thing I can imagine. Whatever would be least exciting, that's the plot. Whatever will degrade characters I love, especially the male ones, that will surely be the plot of the story. And with that in mind, let's look at this news to see what lies in the future of Lucasfilm. This article is from Deadline. Bob Iger to keep running Disney until 2026, originally supposed to exit in 2024. Bob Iger will not be handing Disney over to a successor next year after all. Originally back as Mouse House CEO for just 2 years, Iger's contract has now been extended another 2 years through the end of 2026, the company announced today. Time and again, Bob has shown an unparalleled ability to successfully transform Disney to drive future growth and financial returns, earning him a reputation as one of the world's best CEOs, said Disney board chair Mark G. Parker today of the decision to keep the past and present CEO on longer. Bob has once again set Disney on the right strategic path for ongoing value creation and to ensure the successful completion of this transformation while also allowing ample time to position a new CEO for long-term success. The board determined it is in the best interest of shareholders to extend his tenure. Translation: nobody wants to take the job right now because Disney that is, will do the same thing to that person that they did to Bob Chapek. They will set that person up as Bob Iger's fall guy. I mean, come on. With a company as large as Disney, strategic initiatives take years before they bear fruit. The gears take a long time to turn in a corporation as massive as Disney. Chapek was only in his position for 2 years, so pretty much all the shitty things that happened to Disney under his watch were really just the results of Iger. But whatever, this is corporate politics, and Chapek lost the optics game, and Iger won. And as they mentioned in the Bounding into Comics article, Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy seem to have a bit of beef with one another. Iger did indeed neglect to mention her in his memoirs, and with that in mind, here is my prediction for what will happen with Kathleen Kennedy, keeping in mind that I'm just some guy on the internet who could very easily be wrong, but here's my educated guess. On the heels of the Indiana Jones 5 disaster, Kennedy is in the hot seat. I think Iger has been looking for a way to remove Kennedy. He's been looking for an excuse. This, Indiana Jones 5, is that excuse, and now the board of executives will back his play. A CEO with a few more years on his contract has a lot more latitude to do what he wants, so I do think Kennedy will lose her job, but it will probably play out like this. Her contract with the company expires next year. My guess is they will simply let it expire, and she will announce her retirement, and she will ride off into the sunset with Iger and other members of Disney talking about how awesome she is and what her legacy is, but we will be celebrating until, of course, they announce her replacement, which won't be Favreau. It will be one of Kennedy's acolytes that she has in place at the studio. But in any event, usually companies like to extend contracts a year or so before they expire, so we should know whether or not my hunch is correct soon. If Kennedy's contract isn't extended in the next few months, say by the end of the year, then it's a safe bet that she's gone. But what do you think? Will Kennedy's reign of terror be over soon? And is Favreau's role in Star Wars reduced to practically nothing these days? Drop your thoughts down below and we will have a chat. Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your captain is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.